Hello there, this is William from Boxer 2 Valve and Wunderlich America, working on a K-bike. Second video on a K75 here. This thing's got over 190,000 miles. And well, the brakes are the ones in need of repair today. We've got the engine running good, but it's equally important that you can stop, maybe more important. So these rotors are pretty shot. I think we might find they've gone metal to metal, but we're going to replace the rotors. We're going to rebuild the calipers, the master cylinder, and let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is take the front wheel off, and to do that, just loosen these pinch bolts. There we go. Before I get too deep in this, I'm going to throw some gloves on. This is going to be dirty. We also need to loosen the calipers. Well, they're coming off anyway, but in order to get the front wheel off. Okay, and then we'll take the axle out. Pull the axle out and support the wheel at the same time. And the spacers fall out. This one here, there's one on this side, the short one is on the right. And that's that for right now. And now we can kind of move the calipers a little bit and the wheel rolls out. There we have it. Now, by the way, I should mention, the way this is working out is I've got this bike on a lift, as you can see, and I've got the rear wheel clamped down with the cycle vise and straps holding it down as well. If you don't have a setup like that, you also can put a jack or something underneath the motor to support it. But the bike won't stand on its own with the front wheel off because all the weight's normally on the front wheel. So just keep that in mind when you do this. Okay, so might as well do one thing at a time. Let's start with the brake discs and get the wheel all sorted out, and then we'll go back and work on the hydraulics. We'll start by taking the brake discs off of the wheel. So just socket on one side. It's actually a 16 millimeter socket on this side and an 8 Allen on the other. Okay, keep a couple things in mind with this. The nuts are on the left side, and there is a washer that goes on, and then a lock nut. And you want to replace these lock nuts when you take the disc off. It's just good practice, and we'll get to that when we put it back together again. So once the bolts are out, then the brake disc will usually just pop right off. So there's the right one and the left one. And I'm going to clean this all up and come back to this in a moment. These are not the original brake discs off of this bike, I'm pretty sure, but they're really shot. So it's a good idea that we're replacing them. And this is the ABS ring that needs to be removed and reused. It's held in place with these 3 screws here. And so we'll go ahead and take those out first. These are little tiny screws with 3 millimeter Allen. I'm just going to heat up the aluminum a little bit so that hopefully the screw comes out without too much difficulty. Pretty tight. Oh, Not so good. We'll try something different. Let's see if an impact driver will help us get that out of there. I think it's coming. It just maybe probably has some Loctite on there and rust. Oh boy. Well, despite my best efforts, I rounded everything. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is just drill these all out. We're not going to be reusing this part anyway. I'm just going to go do that and continue in a bit. Just like that. Okay, there it goes. Okay, there was no way I was going to get those screws out, so I ended up drilling the heads off of them, and that's just fine because we don't need to worry about taking the rest of the bolts out. That's trash anyway, but we do need to get this ring off without damage, and so probably a few ways you could go about that. I'm going to heat it up a little bit, but then I'm going to use a puller, but you also could, I think, set it up and go, you can get access to it and just evenly tap, tap, tap in these different places until it comes off. But let's see how the puller trick works. I just happen to have this 3-jaw puller here that will work. I got a bearing and seal driver from a Harbor Freight seal driver kit, the biggest one. And then this tool here we'll use to put the puller, this is the Kuko puller pad set. So that's pretty clean right there. And let's put this on there like so. This puller is pretty cool because when you push on it, all 3 kind of go in at the same time. You can get a good bite on everything. Okay, that feels pretty good. Let's see how it just even feels by hand. Feels like it's actually coming up without getting too crazy with anything at all. So we'll put a wrench on that. My intention was to heat it, but if it comes off with very little force, then we can maybe skip that part. But yes, it's just coming off like barely really need the wrench for this. So that's all there was to that. So it would have come off easily if you tapped it too. So that's not a big obstacle. So now this is that ring that needs to go onto the new discs. Now, I think I'm going to go ahead and clean this all up because it's got a lot of crud on it. Then we'll reinstall this onto the new brake disc. Since we have a vapor blaster, I took the ABS ring and cleaned it up so it looks pretty much almost like new. Keep in mind it is directional. There's a flat side. This is a little bit recessed here. The flat side goes down onto the brake rotor. But speaking of brake rotor, let's look at this. Siebenrock just came out with, here in 2025, a new series of brake rotors, not only for the K-bike, for other airhead models as well. A whole bunch of new ones made by Magura in Germany, and they're just beautiful. They're exact replicas of the original. Now, the original brake disc here was supplied with the ABS ring, but it's, I believe, no longer available. So that's why this is a very important part that allows us to still replace the brake rotors on these older motorcycles. This is supplied with some new nuts, which is great, and torque specs are listed in here as well as model fitment, but there's so many models that we can fit. Just check out our website and see the brake rotors are available probably for your model, whatever BMW might ride. Yeah, you can actually see it's got the Magura marking here on there. So it's the real deal, beautifully, beautifully made. Might be the nicest part on your K-bike. So to put this on, we'll first put the ABS ring on. And it should be a pretty like slight interference fit, but just so that it goes on real clean, I'm gonna just heat up this ring a little bit, and that way it should just slip right on, very simply. There we go. Snap right into place. Cool. So now we're going to put some new screws in. We've got some stainless button head screws and some stainless washers that we'll put on there. So at the time of this filming, we don't actually have these screws, but they don't come with the kit either. So you'll need to maybe source these. Maybe we'll have them available. At this moment, we don't. So I'll tell you that this is a M5 by 12 stainless screw. Pretty commonly available thing. These are Torx fasteners. And then this is a M5 washer with the outside diameter of 15 millimeters. And so that's just about perfect for covering up or for securing the ABS ring on there. And then and using this T25 Torx bit, I'm going to be able to install those. But first we want to put a little bit of Loctite on those threads. So if you look at the BMW parts fiche, you actually, I don't think we'll find this ABS ring is sold separately because it was supplied as part of the disc. So also that's why we don't have really part numbers for these fasteners, because you're not supposed to do this, or at least that's what they thought back then. But there's nothing wrong with doing it this way. These are the cards we're dealt at this time when the parts are no longer available from BMW. But it's not a bad thing. It's a wonderful, wonderful product. So that is going to be the ABS side. And now let's grab the other one. This rotor is for the left side. And if your bike does not have ABS, this would work on both left and right. If you have ABS like this, and you need one for the right side, one for the left side, without ABS, this one fits both left and right on the front. So there you have it, a nice set of rotors. Now we'll put it back on the wheel. Before we put the brake rotors back onto the wheel, we're going to go ahead and take the opportunity right now, since it's sitting right here, to put in some new wheel bearings. It's a good idea to do, and we're right there. So to do that, we need to remove the wheel bearings first. Now it's pretty tough. It's very hard to get at the bearing to remove it. The slickest way is with this Kuko puller. And these are a great tool. They come in different sizes for pulling out various bearings. If you've seen any of our videos before, you might know about them. For steering head bearings, etc., it's almost indispensable, and it works really well here too. So I just need to put this adapter in here for the smaller size, or like so. Now, this goes down inside. And as you tighten that, you feel it goes into that groove. There's just a little bit, but it just snags it. And we'll go down here like this. And we'll tighten everything up. All right, you can kind of see how this works. This is perched on the edge of the wheel, and this puller is down and spread out against the lip beneath the bearing. The bearing's basically sitting in there like that, and we're grabbing it from this edge right here. So let's see what happens. So probably was a good call. They feel okay, but they've been in there for a while. So we'll get the other side out too. Inside of here, there's a spacer that holds everything together. And the cool thing about these wheel bearings is you don't need to do any shimming or anything like that. You just put them back in, clean it up, clean everything up, of course, and then it goes back together again. So now once you have removed one side, you can knock the other one out, because now you can actually get a perch on it, or you can just simply use the Kuko puller to pull the other side out too. And now it'll be really easy because it's not going to slip on anything. It's going to get a real good bite on there. That's all lined up. So you notice that I put the Kuko puller on this edge, even though it's sort of like a small area. I don't want to put it down here because sometimes the teeth on the puller can leave little marks, and this is the surface where the rotor and the wheel come together. So if there was any sort of raised area imperfection, it could lead to a brake pulse or something like that. So that's why, unless you protect this surface somehow very well, you're better off going up here, because this doesn't have any influence on anything else. That's that. Just going to clean things up a little bit. Okay, I think I've got that cleaned up. There's no grease needed. The bearings are all pre-greased. It couldn't be a whole lot easier. Now we're just going to go ahead and put these back in again. Just going to give the wheel a little bit of heat, just to expand it a little bit. And then I've got my driver all ready to go. And hammer, so we'll be ready to knock these in. That one. Okay, here we go, ready. That dead sound of what you want. Now this spacer goes in. Just going to wipe it off too. There's just simply is a spacer that's the same machine depth as the where the bearing is seated, so that it provides support for the inner race. These are roller bearings, not tapered. Roller bearings, not tapered, so they don't need any preloads. There's no shim adjustment, nothing like that necessary. It just drops right in like that. And then we'll unpackage the other bearing and get it ready for installation. There we go. Now we can put the brake discs back on again. So before I do that, I'm just going to clean this up a little bit more, get some of that old grime off of there, just to make sure that we get a nice, true connection between the wheel and the brake. This is just a Scotch-Brite pad, so we're not removing any material, we're just removing the dirt. Okay, I noted the direction of rotation on the tire, and so just setting in there so we have it all right. So now we can get our discs. For this, I'm going to get some clean gloves on. We're cool, now ready to put the brake discs on. Now we do, the rotors from Seabrook come with these nylock nuts, and they're totally cool. But if you want to be like original, we also have these galvanized nuts that instead of using the nylon locking mechanism, it's kind of a pinch one. These are the ones that I took off, but new replacements. So we're just gonna run those just because I like to keep things original. Okay, so here we go. So let's go ahead and put these on. I think the wheel position here between the forks, just because it's really convenient, it just kind of holds the wheel where you want it, so you can get to both sides, straddle the forks, and then we're just going to go ahead and run all these nuts up and then torque them. Now we're going to torque them to 30 Newton meters. All right, the wheel is ready for reinstallation, but we got way more work to do on the hydraulics. So I'm just going to put the wheel aside for the next period of time till we're really ready to put it back together. All right, now we're going to start on the hydraulic side of things. And just a little preface here. This bike is, as we know, pretty old, has a lot of miles on it, and we need new brake pads, which means we need to change the piston position. And my concern is that who knows how many times the brake fluid's been changed over the years, I don't know. I'd hate to take that crud that's inside of the brakes, inside of the calipers, and push that back in. The ABS still works on this thing, so we've got our fingers crossed that it'll work when we're all done. But we want to get rid of all the brake fluid, take the calipers apart, clean them, put it back together with new seals, and master cylinder too, and just do the best we can to make sure that everything's clean. So starting out, I'm going to just suck the brake fluid out of the master cylinder reservoir. And before I even get started on that, brake fluid is nasty stuff. So we're going to cover the tank up, this cool cover to protect the paint. Using a vacuum bleeder, which is a slick way to go, you just can vacuum this all out. So on this system, you got one brake line that goes down to this caliper, then crosses over to the other one. So the bleeder nipple's over on this side, and I'm gonna break that loose. So it's probably more or less drained. So I need to break the brake line free. What works okay is if you just put a bolt back in to the caliper here. I'm just going to do that to hold the caliper in place. Just okay, now I can get my wrench on there, and not just holding it by hand, but now I can break that loose, using a line fitting to break it loose so you don't round it off. And then you can go to a regular wrench and screw it. There we go. Because we drained it all, there's not a big mess being made with the brake fluid. So there's one caliper, take the other side off the same way. So on this model, it's a banjo fitting on the one side and a line fitting on the other. You're going to want to replace these crush rings when it goes back together again. We'll get some of those. And now we can get the other line off. Okay, now this caliper is loose, but we have here the ABS sensor that we need to contend with. And so you could unplug it, or you could just unscrew it from here, which is, I think, gonna be the easiest way to go. Let's see, hopefully they cooperate. The screws, I mean. This might be the first application of torque screws in BMW history, I don't know. All right, so the ABS sensor is loose. The caliper is free there. And so there are some shims here. There's a big stack of them, and that we'll look at when we put it all back together to make sure that the gap is correct, but there's no reason why it would have changed, but we'll still check it anyway. And for the meantime, this can just kind of hang there like that. And now we'll take the calipers over to the bench and get them all sorted out. All right, well, let's talk calipers. It's just easier to do a lot of this on the bench. First thing we got to do is take this little cap off. So you just get in there with a screwdriver very carefully, pry it off. It just clips on. It's nothing really to it. And then I'm going to just chuck this up in the vise like this and knock these pins out. Sometimes you just got to get the spring clip kind of goes with it. Give that a little help off the side. This little piece comes out of the middle, and then we'll take the other pin out too. And the pads come out. So there's one. We'll do the same thing to the other side. There we go. So what's unique about this right side is it has this bracket on for the ABS. I don't really see any particular reason to remove it. For what we're going to do, it can stay on there. The idea is we're going to take these calipers apart, clean them apart. So you'll see, we're going to do that right now. And so put it back in the vise again, just for a different purpose. And I got to take these two bolts out here. And they're kind of like this. It came loose a little bit, but I'll just put a little bit of penetrating oil in there. Hopefully that'll help to get it to come. Yeah, it's coming out. The other side too. All right, we've got those separated. What we need to do now is to get the piston out. There are some pliers that I don't have right now, so I can't use them, that you get in and expand and you can kind of pull them out. But there's another way to do it, which is pretty easy, and that is with air pressure. So let's give that a try. Basically, you gotta seal these, this hole up. So if we just push it hold it onto the workbench like this, to seal it with a rag like that, and then with a rubber tip, go in here like this, give it some air. See that? Boom, pops right out, just from air pressure. Now we can carefully grab it and kind of help it out of there, like that. Okay, so here we go. This is kind of the stuff that I was concerned about. There's quite a lot of debris in there, just see all the snot in there from over the years. That's what we want to get out of there, so that we give the brakes the best chance at still working out. So that's one side. Here's the piston. We have a rebuild kit, so we'll be replacing this. We're gonna look at the piston, make sure it's in good shape. If not, we have replacements available. But let's run that number on this other side right now too. Oop, that worked good too. Same thing, you can kind of see all that muck in there. So there we go. So that's the procedure for taking them apart, or that's one way to do it if you don't have the pliers, but that's a very effective way. And it's this exact same procedure on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'm going to clean everything up, and then we'll get back to the interesting part of putting them back together again. Alrighty, so I got everything cleaned, and everything looks very, very good. Everything's all clean, and I blew out all the passages and all that. So now we can put it together. The pistons, they are in very good condition. You normally would want to see, you know, if there's a lot of any scoring or anything like that. There's a little bit of wear from it riding on the seal, but I don't really think that they need to be replaced. If it were the case, then you could do that. These are parts that are available. So we're going to want to replace all the seals. And so this is a original Brembo kit here. It does come with instructions in many languages. And what you get in this kit is new seals for the pistons, new dust seals. There's an O-ring where there's a connection, and new bolts to replace those rusty ones, and a little packet of grease for the rubber parts. So let's start with this one. I was careful not to mix up the pistons so they go back in the same way they came out. So the first thing is these guys. When I was washing these caliper halves in the solid tank, I popped the old ones out. And these are slightly already pre-greased out of the bag, and you just gotta get them inside there, into that groove. Very easy thing to do, just like that. And now we can take a little bit of this grease and just give it a little bit extra on that surface. Maybe even just a little smear on here on the piston. Now the next thing you can do is, this is a really good time to actually put this seal on the piston while you have it in your hand. So just push that around into that groove. Make sure that it seats all the way around, just like that. And now put the piston in, and it has to go in straight because it's a very tight fit. Push it past the seal. Now you can take the second part of the seal and snap that around that lip. And then you can push the piston in all the way. Let's try that one more time with a little bit better camera angle. So I've already got that seal in place. We're going to take a little bit of this grease. And you don't want to put too much on, just enough so you're covering the seal. And then a little bit on the piston itself. We're talking really not that much. Okay. Now you can take the seal like this. Put that on like so. Make sure it's pushed down all the way. Now we put the piston in. You have to go in straight, push it past the seal. There it goes. And now, put that seal in to the groove. It snaps into place, and now you can push the piston in all the way. It popped out, there you go, back in again. So those are ready to put back together, the two halves. So there's provided is also a little O-ring. I put just a little tiny bit of the seal on there, very much more so to hold it in place, make sure, and it drops in. One side has a recess like that, and just so that stays in place. There it is. And new bolts are provided in the kit. Don't Loctite them, because you want to be, someday they have to come apart again in 190,000 miles from now. So, but I will put a little bit of copper anti-seize on the threads, just to make the disassembly easier for that guy in 3 decades or whatever this happens again. So I'm just double check to make sure the O-ring is still there, everything looks good, everything's clean, Sano. Put this back together like that. Hold it in one hand and get those bolts started. All right. So now that we've got them put together, we'll go ahead and torque those fasteners. Before we do, just going to make sure they're both slightly loose, check the alignment, everything looks and feels flush, and then we'll tighten them up. Okay. And 50 Newton meters is what they call for. Come down on one pretty tight, the other one to 50 Newton meters. Okay, pretty simple. Now's actually a good time to put the brake pads in. So the sintered pad is what's called for on these ABS models on the front. So also these pins that came out that I knocked out before, I mean they're just rusty, and so we're going to put new ones in. So it's got all 4 pieces. So a little pin that goes in the middle, like in between in here, and then the 2 pins and the clip that holds everything together. To prevent squeaking and any unpleasant noises, we'll put a little bit of this on the back side, right where that piston is going to make contact with it. That should be good. You hook the spring in. Get this first pin put in place. Just a couple taps to start it. Now this guy here drops in place like that. So interestingly enough, it's a very tight fit. And it doesn't even go in. So I'm just gonna knock that down with a file real quick. Okay, it didn't take much, but now it fits in there just perfectly. Have some movement possible. And then we can put this. When you put the second pin in, if you take a screwdriver and push down on the spring, it makes it a lot easier to get it past all the different diameters it has to pass through. Cool, now you just gotta sort of straighten everything out so that the pads are laying nice up against the pistons and the spring is snapped into the groove on both pins. And now everything is looking pretty good. And this caliper is now ready to reinstall. It'll slip right over those rotors because the pistons are compressed all the way. So we set this one aside for reassembly, And we'll do the other one real fast too. All right, let's put them back on. All right, we'll put the wheel in first off. So the small spacer goes in here. Put a little bit of grease on the axle is always a good idea, so it's easier to take off again in the future. This is a kind of a grease that stays put. Then the other axle spacer goes in like there. Everything looks good. Now we'll put the bolt in first. I'm going to hold it with a screwdriver or something similar while you torque it to about 20 Newton meters. Then, after you've tightened the axle bolt, then you tighten the pinch bolts. So now is the best time to clean the rotors, because you can assume that there's some grease on there or from holding it, and also just from anti-corrosion, whatever. But that's why I didn't clean them yet, because this is the best, easiest way to do it. Just take some brake parts cleaner, saturate the rag pretty well, and now you can clean them sort of like this. You can see some gunk came off of there. So that's that. Now we're going to put the calipers back on again. Reverse order of coming apart, we need to attach the ABS sensor back to the caliper. So those bolts were a little tough coming out, but they're still serviceable. But I will put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads so that they'll come out again next time, if needed. And then we have that stack of shims, which we'll put back on. And put that into position, like so. There we go. Okay, what you're going to notice when you look at these bolts is that 3 of them came out with a washer, and 1 of them, no washer, but a flange head and a shoulder on it. You also notice that this upper bolt is machined differently than the others. And the reason for this is that this special bolt is designed to fit perfectly into the slider and position the caliper. And this is important because that way, once the ABS gap has been set, it won't change when you take the wheel off for tire changes, things like that. So make sure you put, you kind of can't screw it up because this bolt won't fit in the other holes because it's bigger. So 32 Newton meters is what we're looking for on these bolts. Put this line in first. And I've got some new crush washers for the banjo bolt. All right, everything's all tight and buttoned up. Let's just double check the ABS gap. There is a special tool that was from BMW. The spec is between 0.35 and 0.65 millimeter. It's not super critical. I believe this is true, and I'm checking it. Just basically put it in between the sensor and the tooth wheel here, and it's at the lower end of the specification, but it's within specification. It's a little bit on the tighter side, but it should be just fine. It's clearing nicely, and the test will be when we go ride it. Now we'll do the other side. Okay, last but not least, we're gonna do something about this master cylinder. Take it apart, clean it, hopefully that's all it needs. Put some new seals in, and then we'll be done. So let's get started with that. There's a couple of screws you need a 4mm Allen. One of them is right here. Oh, and what I really should have done first, but it's not too late, is disconnect the brake line before I loosen all the fasteners. All right, so we got that off of there. So the other one's over on this side. And then you can remove the master cylinder like that. And you can leave the cable like that. So it comes off like so. All right, here we got the master cylinder, and we'll take this apart, clean it, and see what it looks like inside. There's a Phillips screw underneath. You can start with that and remove it. And then the reservoir comes off. There's an O-ring seal there. So yeah, that's actually a little bit crusty in there. So this is a good thing we're doing this. Now, there's a circlip. You need some snap ring pliers. Take the clip out. And then the piston pulls out, just like that. Okay, so now we want to have a look inside. What you're seeing is that the cylinder is not in that bad a shape. It was worthwhile taking it apart. We've got a little bit of scuffing on there, but there's no big pits or anything like that. It's in very good shape, really. But new seals and just scuffing up the surface is going to be all it really needs. Now, one way to do that is with a flex hone, a ball hone, and you can get them in different sizes, but they're kind of expensive. And so, you know, you're only going to use it one time, and maybe somebody else will have use for it, but it's kind of a lot of money to invest in a tool in a way that you only use once. So another way that's worked for me very well is these Scotch Brite pads. I'll show you. I'm ensnared. This has got a lot of good uses, I found, for so many things. Take a piece like this and just try to roll it up kind of tight like that and stick it in the hole there. And surprisingly, this will actually do what we want to do, is kind of just, you know, give it a little bit of a, just break up that glazed surface. Without really, we're not trying to take any material off, we're just trying to kind of break the surface. And now you can gradually pull it out as you twist. And looking at it again, yeah, you can actually see now that it's not all shiny in there, but it's got a little bit of cross-hatching in there. We just kind of broke that glaze. That sort of pitting that was on the top is pretty much gone. Just basically cleaned it up. Now we can put it back together after we clean it a little bit more. All right, I cleaned it all up, and it's got rid of any kind of little bits of corrosion, and the bore looks good, cleaned up, so we can reuse this. I'm sure it's been replaced over the years, at least once, so it's probably not terribly old, but it definitely will benefit from the work we're doing here. So we got the rebuild kit here. Let's see what's inside. Detailed instructions are there, and some paste for the seals. They give you two different diaphragms for the cap. The kit comes with these, but you're not going to use either of them. The 13mm kit that we need for this master cylinder comes with things that you're not going to need necessarily. Like these rubbers are for two-valve twins, for old boxer two valves, but the cylinder part is the same. So we'll use the part we need. So I'm comparing the two together. It does appear to be the same, but these parts aren't on there. So we'll take those off and put the new one on. We use their grease. Is put a little bit of special grease paste on here on the seals. Not much is needed. Carefully push this in. Then I'll put the circlip in. Now with the circlip, especially on an application like this, you'll notice these are stamped out of a piece of sheet metal. So when they do that, when they stamp it out, that the tool causes the edges to round on one side, and it causes them to be sharp on the other side. So you want to put the sharp sides up, the rounded sides down, because that'll get a better bite into the groove that's in the master cylinder. Okay, I'm holding the clip now with the pliers. Push that in and try to squeeze that in and get that in just like that so that it goes into the groove. Give it a couple of little twists to make sure it's seated properly. There we go. So that's all sorted out. All right, then we're going to put a new O-ring on here. I took the old one off already. That just snaps in place. I've cleaned this up. Now we can put a little bit of that paste on that as well so that it goes in nice and smoothly. And that just goes right back in again. Little slight twisting action. Make sure it's seated properly. And then we can put that screw back in. So now we'll go put it back on the bike and bleed the brakes. All right, just a moment ago when we were comparing the two master cylinders, those two pieces that I kind of slid off of there, it's not that those aren't needed. They do have a place, and that's inside here. They're a seal for the piston. So you can get in there, probably hard to film, but you can get in there and look at this, pull this out, there's the shim. And right behind it is that rubber seal. These are those parts right there. This is kind of brittle, so good thing we were going to replace it. And it's got a raised edge. That goes in first. You can just feel it in there and push it in. And then the shim or the washer fits right on top of it. Now the master cylinder can go back on. New seals on the banjo bolt. Very cool. We've done a lot of work on this bike. Now, for the fun part, I guess, is bleeding the brakes. That could be a challenge with this, the way the crossover is on this caliper, but let's just jump into it, see what happens. So just a little thing about what we're going to do about bleeding the brakes. This is the front brake ABS modulator, and the one on the other side is for the rear brake. So what's going to happen is we're going to put fluid in the reservoir and draw it all the way through the system. It's going to wind up going all the way back here, through the ABS, back again, over here, down to the right caliper, then up and over to the left caliper. So it's got a long way to go. So that's why I got 2 bottles of liquid moly .4. I might need 1, but it doesn't hurt to have 2 because there's going to be a lot of fluid. We still have the rear brakes to do too. So we'll go ahead and get that sort of level. And I've got my bleeder hooked up, get some air hooked up to it. Okay, it's kind of a little bit of a balancing act. I'm going to crack this valve open and get the air pressure going through here to make vacuum. Then we got to make sure that we don't run out up here. You can see it's already starting to drop. It's pulling through. Got to keep on filling it up. We give it a couple of light pumps at the brake lever to make sure that the master cylinder fills up, but it's just pulling through. So we're starting to see some fluid come through here. Okay, there's also a bleeder nipple at the back here on the ABS unit. So we're going to try and see if we can get anything out of that one too. Okay, we're getting a good steady flow. I'm going to give it a few pumps and see if we're starting to get a decent lever. It has to actually also build pressure in the calipers. It's starting to come. Starting to feel like brakes. Snapping the lever like that helps a lot sometimes, just to release any air bubbles. So, not there yet, but we're getting somewhere. So the brake lever feels very good now, and I'm happy with that. We'll go ride it in a little while later on, and I think it's gonna be great. So just gonna give this a little top off here, and then put the cap back on. I cleaned this all up. The bellows looks in very good condition, so we're just going to run that again. And that sits on there. And then keep in mind that the screws, there is one short one, and obviously because of the angle here, that one goes here, and the two longer ones go here. There we go. So that was front brakes, pretty much everything you can do to front brakes. Not too hard, huh? Really not that bad. You just got to take your time and you'll do it. So now let's go forward to the rear.